This is a moment when we might feel as though we're alone, but I must assure you, we are not. Welcome to the annual Interfaith service for the city of Brighton Hove. It's run by the Interfaith Contact Group, which brings people of different religions and none together in our city and beyond in harmony. As you know, the pandemic has changed everything. It's preventing people to gather, to talk, to live, to laugh, celebrate and worship together. But whatever your faith position, and it really isn't important, today we're asking you to share our annual service for this city with this celebratory film, which is on the theme of connecting communities. So put aside any feelings of disconnection. As I said, you are not alone. The IFCG has been working to overcome the enforced disconnection created by the pandemic, and in March of this year we created Words of Connection. It's a service of connection to ourselves and our friends, and in exactly the same way I'm inviting you right now to join us in this service of connection for our city. I'd also like to thank you for joining us, and also make a request that you and I and those people that we love here and beyond are held. And dare I say it, blessed. Blessed on this day and also beyond. Thank you so much, and please enjoy this film. It is for you.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa Allah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
Hello everyone. I'm sorry we can't be together this year, that we can't be in the same place. But we've learned through this coronavirus crisis that we can be together in other ways, digitally, online, that we can connect together even though we can't be together physically. And as we think about community and the community we've created over these past few months online, and we think about the connections we've made, a verse from Psalm 133, the first verse, comes to my mind. How good it is and how pleasant when people dwell together in unity. Hinei ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hinei ma tov u'manayim shevet achayot gam yachad. Hinei ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hinei ma tov u'manayim shevet achayot gam yachad. Hinei ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Ma tov u'manayim shevet achayot gam yachad. Yulai le yulai yulai le yulai yulai le yulai yu. Yulai le yulai yulai le yulai yulai le yulai yu. Yulai le yulai yulai le yulai yulai le yulai yu. How good it is and how pleasant when people dwell together in unity.
Hello, I'm Councillor Alan Robbins and I'm the Mayor of Brighton Hove and Portslade. Our city is so different for so many reasons. The architecture, its geographical location and its history. But the reason I believe it is so special is because of its diversity and the pride it takes in that diversity. Brighton and Hove is truly proud of its citizens. Their great variety of cultures, genders, preferences, ages, faiths and skills. Our city is a kind city. I see the kindness everywhere. So many of our citizens want to take care of the frail, the old and the vulnerable members of our community. And I believe that that kindness is also experienced by our visiting tourists and students. We welcome people here and I believe the city has a good heart. The Interfaith Contact Group, which is committed to serving people of all faiths and none, has been part of the scenery in our city for over 20 years. Its remit is to bring people of faith and none together in harmonious accord. Ever since it was formed, the IFCG chose to make the Mayor its patron. Today, this relationship is even stronger since I chose to make the Interfaith Contact Group serve as my chaplain. This means I can call upon people of many different faiths to support me in my mayoral duties, right now and also after lockdown. Similarly, I am hoping that in turn, the different faiths that belong to the IFCG will feel free to call upon my help and become increasingly involved in the civic work that we do together. The work that will help our city to recover from this terrible moment in time. This film, which replaces the 10th annual Interfaith service in Brighton and Hove, bears witness to the loving spirit that is so much part of this diverse and very special place, your city and mine.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the speakers today who have taken their time to record their beautiful contributions, which are real expressions of love for our city.
It's always a pleasure and a privilege to highlight some of the amazing work our local faith groups do to make a difference in our communities. But this year, more than ever, I've been struck by the thoughtfulness, the kindness and the sensitivity shown by those just quietly getting on with it and helping out and looking out for other people. Yes, we've probably said the words unprecedented and challenging and pandemic way more than we ever imagined we would this time last year. But I've also found myself saying this word quite a lot on the radio too: connection. The power of connection. And I know, despite all the technical headaches that can come with it, how much difference hooking up to a Zoom service can make for some people, or being on the end of a friendly phone call, or just seeing a smile through a window, having a meal delivered. And our faith communities have been there helping make those connections happen. Those little interactions of hope in some pretty difficult and scary times. Perhaps there is a good news story here about how so many people have had to think again about what it means to be inclusive and welcoming, realising that actually we're not all the same and have different needs, different fears, different ways of dealing with things, but that we all need each other too.
Hi, my name is the Reverend Martin Poole. I'm the Vicar of St Luke's, Prestonville in Brighton, and we have a number of different members of our congregation are going to help with this reading, which is from the New Testament, part of the Bible. It's one of Paul's letters to the Corinthians about the need for us in community to value each other, even though we bring different things and different skills and qualities. So it's 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 14 to 27. So, the body is not made up of just one part, it has many parts. Suppose the foot says, I'm not a hand, so I don't belong to the body. By saying this, it cannot stop being part of the body. And suppose the ear says, I'm not an eye, so I don't belong to the body. By saying this, it cannot stop being part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, how could it hear? If the whole body were an ear, how could it smell?
God has placed each part in the body just as he wanted it to be.
If all the parts were the same, how could there be a body? As it is, there are many parts, but there is only one body. The eye can't say to the hand, I don't need you. And the head can't say to the feet, I don't need you. In fact, it is just the opposite. The parts of the body that seem to be weaker are the ones we can't do without. The parts that we think are less important we treat with special honour. The private parts aren't shown, but they are treated with special care. The parts that can be shown don't need special care. But God has put together all the parts of the body, and he has given more honour to the parts that didn't have any. In that way, the parts of the body will not take sides. All of them will take care of one another. If one part suffers, every part suffers with it. If one part is honoured, every part shares in its joy. You are the body of Christ. Each one of you is a part of it.
This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Awakening by Harriet Cofolk. Awakening in a moment of peace. I give thanks to the source of all peace. As I set forth into the day, the birds sing with new voices, and I listen with new ears and give thanks. Nearby, the flower called Angel's Trumpet blows in the breeze, and I give thanks. My feet touch the grass, still wet with dew, and I give thanks, both to my Mother Earth for sustaining my steps, and to the seas cycling once again to bring forth new life. The dewdrops become jewelled with the morning's sunfire, and I give thanks. You can see forever when the vision is clear. In this moment, each moment, I give thanks.
I'd now like to introduce you to somebody who's very well known in Brighton and Hove and also in Lewes, a person of great gifts, a wonderful voice and an extraordinary talent, also an interfaith minister, Razia Aziz.
Oh, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, come, oh, come, oh, come, oh, hey, oh, hey. Ah, hey, welcome, welcome. We are the children of the creation from every nation, in every tongue we speak as one. Assalamu alaikum, walaikum assalam. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Peace be upon you, and you, and you, and you. Peace be upon you. This new day at its start, I make way for the light in my heart, and gentleness and joy abound, where yesterday only pain was found. Tomorrow is a day that never comes. In the present shines my brightest sun. The past a lesson I must face. Spirit, guide me to a place where all the world and I are one. This new day at its start, I make way for the light in my heart, and gentleness and joy abound, where yesterday only pain was found. Tomorrow is a day that never comes. In the present shines my brightest sun. The past a lesson I must face. Oh, wisdom, guide me to a place where all the world and I are one.
Our next reader is Jonathan Gravestock, who represents Hove Methodist Church.
The Bible reading I'd like to share with you comes from chapter 22 of St. Matthew's Gospel, verses 34 to 40. The context is that Jesus has returned to Jerusalem for the last time, knowing that the religious authorities wanted to silence him. Yet despite this, he's teaching the people in the temple whilst fending off challenges from those authorities. When the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together, and one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. "Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest?" He said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the greatest and the first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets." I treasure this passage for three reasons. Firstly, I believe it shows Jesus' own priorities, unfiltered by the motives of intermediaries since with their own agendas. And it solves the problem we all face, which is how to prioritize all the other challenges of life with their solutions or rules. Secondly, the solution Jesus gives of valuing God or the common good before self-interest also empowers us to obey the second rule, to love our neighbours as ourselves, which most religions agree on. And lastly, but most importantly, I personally value these words because Jesus didn't simply teach them, he showed how to live them.
My name is Lynn Bayliss, and I'm the Pagan Faith Advisor for the Sussex NHS Community Foundation Trust. As a pagan, I tune into the source of all life for guidance and help, and to understand how I can make others aware of our interfaith work. And as always, I'm reminded that I should look to Gaia, to nature, for the answers, for this is where I keep my strength and my sustenance. Many consider plants and trees have little, if no intelligence. But what if I was to tell you that there is a substantial body of scientific evidence that tells me otherwise? Over the millennia, trees and plants have evolved to live in cooperation and in interdependent relationships maintained by communication and a collective intelligence. Not only do they share this intelligence with their own species, but they share it with other trees and plants in the same way that they share water and nutrients through underground fungal networks. They send distress signals about drought, disease, and insect attacks, so that other trees can alter their behaviour when they receive these messages, and that they can put their defences up as appropriate. They act as carers to one another. If one of their members is sickening or under stress, they share nutrients. Big trees pump sugar into the roots of their seedlings and the roots of other seedlings through this network. In the autumn, when trees lose their leaves, the evergreen members of the population help them survive the winter by sending nutrients and carbon to them. And this act is reciprocated in the summer, when the deciduous trees return this favour to keep the evergreens strong. Not only do they draw strength from each other, but a dying tree would invest its resources into the network for the benefits of its neighbours. These so-called unintelligent species have learnt to communicate and have a network contacting all life across the forest floor, and they can draw on this for knowledge about a wider area. They ignore their differences when help is needed by another species, responding and giving their aid as required. If we are to learn from nature, surely it is that communication is the key. Communication through collaboration, mutualism, and by working and being in close association with each other, talking openly together so that we can better understand each other's truths. We too must learn to open our hearts and, like nature, give unconditionally, accepting our differences in the knowledge that there is more to unite us than separate us, accepting the call of our individual deities to walk an uncharted path, sharing each other's load, and meanwhile shedding the unwanted baggage of the past. Quite simply, this is what we are doing. We are all connected. And by trusting our own truths and learning to be the very best we can be physically and spiritually, we do work together regardless of faith, creed or culture, sharing our strengths and our gained knowledge. Like the forests, we give help when it is needed by working with each other through an already established network And we can slowly extend that scope, shining the light of our love into the darkness that surrounds us, a light that will allow us to work together to aid the less able, the poor, and those in despair. As I've just said, in so many ways we are already doing this, but the work we do needs to spread and grow, to be understood, accepted, and hopefully even encouraged by those we serve in the wider community. It is my firm belief that all life forms have a spark of the Creator with them. So as we progress in our work, in this wonderful collaboration of humankind, let us not forget we are connected to a much wider network, that of nature. I, as a pagan, ask you all going forward to remember, please include an awareness of nature and the environment in our day-to-day work, and ensure that our network will indeed be the equal of theirs. Thank you.
Well, during lockdown, many of us found new talents and discovered all sorts of forgotten gifts, and we came together with our neighbours to support each other. This next story is a perfect example of how we can make creative and beautiful connections to the most amazing effect.
I read about a community quilt project and I thought, oh, that'd be a really fun thing to do while everybody's stuck at home. So I put a message out on the community forum and yeah, got lots of brilliant squares arriving a few weeks later.
So I made one square, which is that one there, and over in one of the other blocks there are these coloured windows which I thought were really pretty, so hence the thing in the middle with the different coloured windows. This one was my friend Mona's. I think this one there was Gabriella's. Yeah, that's from a boy called Max. He loves Batman.
Several people who maybe weren't so involved in the community also, or previously, also brought squares in, which was very nice. It was very nice receiving them, so every now and then we'd kind of check outside and there'd be some lovely colourful squares, so that was fun. So this one is mine. It's one of the first ones that was made, as I did mine quite quickly.
They're very different designs, but yet they all sort of mean something in a way. They show you about the person, and you know, sort of just looking at the square and knowing who did it makes you know a little bit more about the person and their sort of like personality and how they are.
To sew it all together took, I think it took 2 or 3 days. Actually pinning it together was the hardest bit.
It is a quilt, but it's supposed to be like a mat that we're going to use for special occasions. Like if we were going to have like a picnic out in the garden all together, we would put the quilt down so we could all sit on it together.
Yes, this really was a way to keep connected when we couldn't even go out in the garden together. And I've discovered so many people and come to know so many people through the lockdown that I didn't know before, that I maybe just said hello to. And now I know their names, their faces, the children all know my name. And it really feels that this is a safe place to be.
It is quite beautiful. I really like it. And I have a few favourite designs. I really like this one and the one up there with the painted birds, and this one's quite funny with the dog going up because of the balloon.
So when I did my square, I tried to record some of the things that had happened, and we had a wear a hat day. Someone was doing some fundraising and everyone was leaning out of their windows. This is when it was total lockdown and no one was allowed out to play, and we were all leaning out of our windows and people who were wearing extraordinary hats.
I'm really pleased with it actually. It's a lot better than I expected it was going to be when I first heard the idea. Also, it looks rather soft and comfy.
in the years to come, you know, I can see that this will be kept in the community, and there'll be someone knocking on a door one day saying, when I was 10, I did a picture. Is it still in Parkgate somewhere? Wouldn't it be wonderful if it still was?
Many people associate the Quakers with silence, and I have attended many beautiful services of silence with the Quakers. But today we have a reading from the Quaker community from Helen Ledger and Vivian Ross.
My name's Helen Ledger, and I'm a member of Brighton Quaker Meeting, the Religious Society of Friends. I'm reading from our book Quaker Faith and Practice about our community. The readings are from 300 years apart. The first by Isaac Pennington in 1667, one of the founding fathers of Quakerism, and the second written in 1994. It's interesting to see how over the years the guidance and teaching has remained very similar. Our life is love and peace and tenderness, and bearing with one another, and forgiving one another, and not laying accusations against one another, but praying one for another, and helping one another up with a tender hand. Our sense of community does not depend on all professing identical beliefs, for it grows from worshipping together, knowing one another, loving one another, accepting responsibilities, sharing and working together.
We will be helped by tried and tested Quaker methods and procedures, but the meeting will only live if we develop a sense of community, which includes children and adults alike. If all those who belong to our meeting are lovingly cared for, the guidance of the Spirit will be a reality. The celebration and commemoration of life's great events draws us together as we share the occasion and rejoice or mourn with one another. Our shared experience of waiting for God's guidance in our meetings for worship and for church affairs, together with careful listening and gentleness of heart,
forms the basis on which we can live out a life of love with and for each other and for those outside our community.
We have many Buddhist communities in Brighton, but today we have Vivian Eliades from Pebble Sangha giving us a beautiful reading for our service today. Thank you.
True community and communication. Aware that lack of communication always brings separation and suffering, we are committed to practicing compassionate listening and loving speech. Knowing that true community is rooted in inclusiveness and harmony of views, thinking, and speech, we will share our understanding and experiences with members of our community in order to arrive at collective insight. We will endeavour to listen deeply without judging or reacting, and to refrain from uttering words that can create discord or cause the community to break. Whenever difficulties arise, we will practice looking deeply into ourselves and others to recognise all the causes and conditions, including our own habits, that have brought about the difficulties. We will take responsibility for all the ways we may have contributed to the conflict and keep communication open. We will not behave as a victim, but be active in finding ways to reconcile and resolve all conflicts, however small.
This is a spiritual moment, and it has been created by one of the jewels in Brighton's crown, our MP Caroline Lucas.
Hello, I'm Caroline Lucas. I'm the MP for Brighton Pavilion, representing the Green Party. The annual Interfaith service is clearly going to be a bit different this year, but I want to thank everybody who's made it possible for it to happen, albeit virtually. and to pay tribute to everybody in our amazing city who has done so much to bring communities together in these dark and difficult days, and who have done so much to keep alive our city's wonderful spirit of connection. I've been asked to read a poem, and I'm going to choose one from one of my favourite poets, Mary Oliver. And the poem is called Am I Not Among the Early Risers? Am I not among the early risers and the long distance walkers? Have I not stood amazed as I consider the perfection of the morning star above the peaks of the houses and the crowns of the trees blue in the first light? Do I not see how the trees tremble as though sheets of water flowed over them, though it is only wind, that common thing, free to everyone and everything? Have I not thought for years what it would be worthy to do, and then gone off barefoot and with a silver pail to gather blueberries, thus coming, as I think, upon a right answer? What will ambition do for me, that the fox, appearing suddenly at the top of the field, her eyes sharp and confident as she stared into mine, has not already done? What countries, what visitations, what pomp would satisfy me as thoroughly as Blackwater woods on a sun-filled morning, or equally in the rain? Here is an amazement. Once I was 20 years old, and in every motion of my body there was a delicious ease, and in every motion of the green earth there was a hint of paradise. And now I am 60 years old, and it is the same. Above the modest house and the palace, the same darkness. Above the evil man and the just, the same stars. Above the child who will recover and the child who will not recover, same energies roll forward from one tragedy to the next, and from one foolishness to the next. I bow down. Have I not loved as though the beloved could vanish at any moment, or become preoccupied, or whisper a name other than mine in the stretched curvatures of lust, or over the dinner table? Have I ever taken good fortune for granted? Have I not every spring befriended the swarm that pours forth? Have I not summoned the honeyman to come, to hurry, to bring with him the white and comfortable hive? And while I waited, have I not leaned close to see everything? Have I not been stung as I watched their milling and gleaming, and stung hard? Have I not been ready always at the iron door, not knowing to what country it opens, to death or to more life? Have I ever said that the day was too cold or too hot, or the night too long and as black as oil anyway, or the morning, washed blue and emptied entirely of the second rate, less than happiness, as I stepped down from the porch and set out along the green paths of the world?
Caroline Lucas brings our service to a close, but before we end, I want to say that the one thing we're missing is a contribution from children, which is something we've always had in our services. So we're going to make up for this before we bring this very special service to a close. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us for this service today. We close with a tribute to this wonderful city of ours. Between the downs and sea, the promenade is just a little quieter than she used to be. The ripples come and go, leaving memories of sickly sweeties, babes in the wood, silver scooters and pink floss. Summer's over. Here and in Regency, those classical curves, home to drug dealers and princesses, seem strangely silent. But then one day, the sliding pebbles and the rustling shore gave us a promise. Music will play again. The bandstand and the pavements will throng with students, families, bubble cars, steampunk fun, greenhouse gases, bracing ozone. It's a tough call for a city full of stars and sunlight and laughter to go quiet, to switch off the lights, turning day to night. But when the ripples recall the memory of it all, join me on the pier. We'll walk on the gentle side, celebrating our difference, making dreams reality. Good people, all sorts, strong in faith and none, people of attitude, sacred. A city of two parts and one, Brighton and Hove, singing and winging and blessing each and everyone. Thank you.